What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the Div Dive. My name is Keith Armstrong, and today I'm chatting with Dexter Washington. He's a designer and entrepreneur based out of Los Angeles, California. He owns Crafted Studios, which won Webflow Agency of the Year last year at Webflow Conference. He also runs Crafted Essentials, which is a smaller subset of Crafted Studios. And he also does a bunch of awesome stuff like coaching freelancers and agencies on how to get their business off the ground. He also runs a newsletter called Designer's Desk. And we had a fantastic conversation today about building agencies and how to find your design style and a bunch of other good stuff. I hope you get some value out of it. It was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed talking to Dexter. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive in.
Welcome. Let's dive in.
Okay, Dexter.
Hey.
Thank you for hopping on, man. Very excited to chat. Yeah, I've been following you for a little bit on Twitter, and I appreciate the energy you put out. It's obvious to me you care about the crafted design, and also the people that work in the space through all of the coaching and stuff you do. It tells you, I can tell you help people wherever you can, so that's awesome. And yeah, I've been meaning to chat with you at some point, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to dig into your story a little bit and just jam on building agencies and stuff like that, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Yeah, I love what you're doing with your community. Yeah, I'm happy to be a part of it. So yeah, let's do it.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think a great place to start would be digging into like what you did before Crafted and what led to creating Crafted Studios.
Yeah, so what led to creating it was I was kind of bouncing around in different agencies, partly in Facebook advertisements. So I would be kind of like a Swiss Army knife in these agencies. So it would not only be Facebook ads, but of course you're running traffic somewhere to a landing page or whatever. So I would be building out the landing pages and optimizing. At the time I think they were using a whole bunch of different tools. I remember I played around with like ClickFunnels and all types of stuff. But so essentially like that's where I was starting to get my knack for building out the design studio. Prior to that though, I was like freelancing different creative services. So advertising, marketing, and just general design too, like web design. Or I would like tap into like a little bit of branding work. So I just was kind of like just doing a bunch of different stuff. I was trying to figure out what I liked, really. Coming from the photography world, was just trying to get a footing in design. I didn't know that that's something that I wanted to do. So yeah, I just was testing things out. So yeah, the agency was the stepping stones, and it's over time built up more and more stepping stones. Working at various agencies and different places, and so yeah, just over time I was just like building the skill sets and everything like that. And then I remember just working at that agency, the last one I was at, I just was like, man, this is just not it. There was a bunch of different things going on in that agency in terms of like the way it was ran. People were having venting sessions and like where they would complain about everything, and it just was, I mean, why work there? I don't see the purpose of working there if we're doing that. So, I just was like, man, I know I could offer something better. And I think I was just seeing how agencies were producing work at the time, well, those ones in particular. They were just, high value. The quality is the quality. It is what it is, but let's just get this out. And this is get the next client in, right? So hence the name Crafted. I really wanted to pay attention to every detail, not only just design, but the entire experience. And so, yeah, I mean, even the contractor experience, right? Like just building a place where people care. So, yeah, that's what just sparked everything. Really just like my frustrations. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally, dude. Well, that's so like crazy because I had such a similar experience where I like worked. I worked on like the music industry, and I did a lot of like event posters, and I did some photography, and I did some social media, and I did some website stuff, and then so I did a bunch of different things just trying to figure out what I really liked, and then I ended up working at an agency that's very similar to like what you mentioned, where it was super stressful and the vibe was just wrong, and it was all about bringing in the new clients like you mentioned, and every client was just a number and stuff like that. So I totally feel you with that experience. During that time, like I really disliked my job and I wanted to do something better. Did you kind of like, is that how you felt about it? You're like, man, this is terrible. Like I kind of feel like I could do something better.
Yeah, for sure, man. I always felt I could do something better. I feel like just more was there, you know. Yeah, I mean, more was there. I think for the most part, working for myself doing photography, going back to a job and feeling constrained again, it just wasn't the move for me, man. I felt like I always just wanted to do something different. I wanted to just be myself. I wanted to, create. I wanted to, just serve a bigger purpose other than let me just clock in and kind of just, go through the motions. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, for sure, man.
Totally. Well, yeah. So while you were doing this like photography business and working at these agencies, were you kind of like crafting a design eye a little bit when it came to websites, or did that come a little later?
Yeah, for sure. So during the night, I would be designing random stuff and just learning design. Um, what I used to do was just grab screenshots from other websites. So I would like, I'm a car enthusiast. So I would just grab like automotive websites and just screenshot those and then see what I can do in Figma to, not replicate them, but to see how I can put my own spin on it. So I would be spending
Hmm.
like the late night hours, my evening to late night, just kind of like playing around with design. And I would just do that over and over and over, honestly, until I just
Hmm.
developed my own taste and my own like what I like, what I don't like. And also, I learned a lot of good principles by doing that. Granted, granted, like not every like large company has the most aesthetically pleasing and beautiful site, but you do grab
Yeah.
some cool things, right? Like some corporate companies, they got like, damn, I could probably do better than that, right? But you just gotta just pick and choose what you like, and so yeah, through doing that, I developed my own taste. So yeah, that's why I used to just screenshot, and see what I can come up with. And I also, in the midst of that, was taking type classes too. So took a couple of typography
Nice.
classes, did awards. I think awards had a couple great ones up there. I ended up taking a couple of those. Um, yeah, that's why I'm really into like type now and like exploring all that different stuff and playing around a lot with different type and yeah, just seeing what I can come up with. Honestly, if I was like really skilled of a designer, I probably would just come up with my own too, but like I'm not. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I just was playing around a lot, man, in my downtime.
Yeah, dude, I love that mindset of just like taking screenshots and like kind of trying to recreate stuff and maybe try to take little tidbits of like everybody's work and just try to understand how they put the stuff together. Not to rip it off, but just understand how they crafted that entire experience. I would suggest that to anybody is just as a good place to start because I think some people don't even really know where to start, especially when crafting your own personal style. Um, yeah, do you have any advice on that outside of that? Just trying to, I guess, craft a style for your design work.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for crafting your own style is really just about, yeah, just figuring out your taste levels, right? So outside of just screenshots, I think there's a lot of different places you can pull inspiration from. So when you look at
Yeah.
packaging design, like what grabs your eyes in the store, right? Like what grabs your eyes about like certain like I don't know, like cars or houses or you know what I mean? Like amongst like just different areas of design, like there's some similarities, right? Like white space, for example. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just like you can implement white space in interior design, you can implement that in architecture, you can implement that in packaging, you can implement that in web. So, if you're noticing these patterns and you see things that are sticking out to you just outside of web, you can pull inspiration from it too. I know for sure for me it's packaging, and like in like photography books, like editorial style photography, like I pull a lot of just inspiration. Although it isn't like, web design, it's still like you kind of get that artistic feel from it. And so just developing a sense for art too, like I think just it helps your design skills. Um, so yeah, just like I think there's a lot of different places we can, pull inspiration from. So it just really depends on how you want to go about it.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like I can kind of see some of that editorial style in some of your work with some of the unique layouts that you do, especially with like the crafted site. For those interested, by the way, craftedstudios.co. Definitely go check it out to see some of their work. Yeah, curious like how the agency got started and what the first like maybe few months were like, getting your first initial clients and how that all came together.
Yeah, so my first initial, I think I'll start there. So my first initial client was, I'll start there and then I'll work back because I know you said like how it generally started. So
Hmm.
while it's at the top of my mind, how I got my first client was my mindset really was just how can I just keep the lights on? I know I would typically just read a lot of stories and posts online and just see people like it took me years to get to like turn over a profit, and I didn't want to wait that long. You know, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just didn't see myself working in a job, and I didn't want to wait that long. So I had to just figure something out. So I actually was starting to form partnerships with other agencies. And so through that, I landed one of my first partnerships I still work with till today and talk to today. Really cool group of people called Cohere City. We've created a lot of cool work together.
Nice.
Collaborative work, yeah, design, dev, and so art direction. Yeah, through them, that gave me an idea of like, hey, if that's one, we can do this for others. So establishing that partnership led me to establishing other partnerships as well. I work with Lever and their software company, a talent acquisition company, help them build cool job boards for like, Delta, Legion, etc. So,
Nice.
like just laying that foundation of partnerships really kind of helped me get going and really inspired me to keep going. And so, in the midst of all of those little moving parts, at first it was just me, and it really was just me by myself, just putting things out because I was just just working as freelancer, and I was like, well, I wanted to brand myself, and yeah, I just wanted to just really build out a serious company. I don't want to just be branded as myself and everything like that, and so I like working in teams. I like collaborative stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna build it. I'm just gonna build this little studio, just see what happens. So, yeah, step by step, I just put together a development team around me. Um, Eventually, I led to hiring a couple of like Webflow experts and stuff like that. And then, yeah, we really just started to get the ball rolling, man. Like, applied for the program, Webflow program. At the time, we were like 50 out of, we were like at the 51 out of like 50 in the US. And that's really a small sample size compared to now, right? We're almost at what, like 1,800 or
Totally.
something like that, almost. So, like you can imagine with the opportunities that there is now in the partner space, like it was more, it was for one more than that, and number two, there was less of us, so it was crazy. So there was
Mm.
tons of work coming in, and I couldn't handle it all, and I wanted to not pass on work. I wanted to just continue to work, and so yeah, that's why I was like, all right, man, I gotta get serious about forming a team. So yeah, that's really where it began. Just trying to like just handle the overflow really.
Nice, dude. Yeah, how's it structured right now? Do you do a lot of the design at the moment?
Yes, at the moment I do. Of course, now that I have a day job, I do want to start to form out a design team that fits the aesthetic of crafted, and just makes sense just in general, right? So like we can put out just good quality work. But yeah, up until this point, it was all me for the most part. Like I have collaborated with some designers, but if it doesn't get approved by me and vetted, then it's just produced by me. So at the very moment though, it's essentially a handful of devs. So there's three developers, one full stack, two Webflow devs, and then yeah, on the brand team there's what is it? There's two brand designers. I have a project manager, and there's myself as designer. So like I'm in the midst of like offboarding all my design. So yeah, that's kind of like where we're at right now. But yeah, it's cool, man. Like I'm just out here, just trying to like really put the pieces together so we can hit that like next level of like just putting out really elite work and just keeping clients happy. So trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, curious how you like started to build that team. Cause like for I don't know, for me, like I have a hard time trying to track down quality people who show up. Like we had some bad experiences early on where we just hired some people and they just weren't doing the work, weren't showing up, would just ghost us or whatever. So yeah, curious how you like found your team and how you think about like hiring and stuff for Crafted.
Oh, dude, I've been burned. I've been burned, bro. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, man, I ain't gonna lie. I've been burned so many times by people, man. Either they disappear on me, they steal money from me, man. I have had thousands
damn.
and thousands and thousands of dollars stolen from me, man. So I've learned through those experiences though, you know what I mean? But Yeah, I've had some tough moments, that like I had to just that up until I was in therapy, I didn't know I was holding on to. I don't it don't feel good being, like maybe betrayed or
Oh
crossed
man,
or ghosted,
totally.
right? So like it's those things. But it's a part of it, right? You want to be a founder, you got to be accountable for everything that comes your way, unfortunately. You got to take things on the chin, unfortunately, that aren't really necessarily like might not have directly do that. And I've done that, but it's your company, so you got to just take the responsibility. So, and it is what it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, I've definitely learned through those experiences. How I go about hiring now is really just like having shout out to Chris Loggins. He's our lead dev, and what we do is we have him come in the interviews, and we just ask questions in terms of like technical skills, like just kind of like get a feeling for their people skills too. Like you don't want
Yeah.
anyone that's like abrasive. Like you really want people who care. So it's just like it's those things, right? Just making sure that the vibe is right, and just the technicalities are there. And then yeah, the portfolios usually speak for themselves. So, outside of those three, I think like that's really what we've been leaning on. And back in the prior days, I was just kind of just going off of like the strengths that I didn't have. So, if someone was like good at WordPress, they'd be like, okay, I'm looking for a WordPress dev, and I would like kind of get familiar with what a large WordPress site might take. So I would ask questions of
Mhm.
like, this plugin, that plugin, or some of our clients might need this, you know how to do this. So it was more so like just coming up with like a list of things that someone could do, and then just the saying is just straight up in the interview, you know how to do this. So like in the early stages, that's what I was trying to get a feeling for. But yeah, now it's a lot smoother, and like we just take things a lot more seriously, just because yeah, you get burned once, you don't want to keep going through all that shit, man. So yeah, experience.
Yeah, dude, I feel you. I don't think I got burned too bad. It was mostly just ghosting. It wasn't like a lot of money lost, but I can definitely feel you that it's stressful, especially when you got like client work that they were supposed to be working on or something that you had to deliver at a particular time, and you're
Yeah.
just kind of stuck like having to do it yourself like last minute. Um, Never fun. But I'm stoked for you. I'm glad you got a good team going now. Um, yeah, so I'm curious, like with that team, sounds like you got a lot of hands in there. How do you think about managing quality? Because I'm sure you have a certain standard for the design style and stuff like that, and how things look, especially when you design it and it goes to dev from there. Yeah, how do you think about like making sure everything's top notch when it goes out the door?
Yeah, I think just for my personal standard is like whenever I design something, it's just how can I make this better, right? Like just
Yeah.
questioning my own work. Not only from like an aesthetic standpoint, but from like a function standpoint, like is this the best route possible? So I think that's how I look at quality in terms of design. Like, is it the best route possible? Is it going to scale well? Like just those types of questions. And then when it comes to everyone else, it's just like passing it around, right? Like getting the team's feelings on it, right? And a part of a part of like building out like a studio for me is just having that collaborative vibe, right? Like where everybody is like excited and stoked for for what we're doing. So like being able to just get like constant like feedback from the other people is cool because we're able to like give like genuine input on like what looks good, what doesn't look good. So in terms of dev, yeah, whenever like we're working on something, I'll look at it. I'll say, hey, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about that? So yeah, just like just asking questions and just like passing the files around and just getting some feedback. Ultimately, we try to just land on something that is function, aesthetically pleasing, and the client is satisfied with it. Right. At the end of the day, if the client's stoked, then we're stoked for it. Um, so I mean, yeah, that's just kind of how I like to think about it. Of course, internally you have quality assurance checklists. It's at somewhere. If you don't, then that's something that you should do. So we have an
Hmm.
internal checklist where we just go through everything in terms of like Webflow dev, like crossing off all the different checkpoints of like SEO, links, etc. So just aside from housekeeping, just collaborating as much as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I noticed on your site you have a couple like awards, honorable mentions, and you were
Mhm.
talking about making the client happy just earlier. And I'm curious how you think about that in relation to the two, because I think on one side you get some designers who are shooting for those like big awards, and then on the other hand, you got to make the client happy. And
Mm,
I'm, sometimes that's a little bit of a juggle. So I'm just curious
yeah.
your thoughts on that in general.
Yeah, it's a juggle. I think it really just depends on what your intentions are. So those awards that you see, my intention wasn't to, win those honorable mentions, but, if the end result is like something that you feel like you could submit and you want to submit it and you want to get exposure and visibility and so with that, then I would say go for it. So that's how we always land on it, right? It's not like it's not like we're starting the project like, hey, let's try to win an award. Because I think if so, then the project would also be different. It would look different. We'd have a different
Hmm.
outcome. It was more so just like this is an awesome experience that we've created and the client's really happy with it. So, you know what though? Maybe other people might like it too, and let's see what other people feel, right? Because at the end of the day, that's just what the judges are doing. Like they're getting a sense of like, they're either saying yes or no, giving you a scale rating, a number rating. So it's just, like that's not the original intention, but if we land in a cool spot, then why not? At the end of the day, some awards have awarded me some cool opportunities to either work like in house somewhere or just like work with clients. So it's a
Yeah.
good opportunity, right? It's not always just about the award and like the flex, but it's more so like the opportunities that can come with it as well. Um, and yeah, you just don't want to get like too caught up in that whole thing because you end up like designing for other people and not like what the task is at hand, right? Like you might be trying to like show off for other designers, which is something you want to avoid probably, or what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just depends, but the intentions I think are important.
Yeah, I'm curious. First of all, I totally agree. I think you got to lead with the client, and then if it's a fun project in nature, then maybe it can go that direction.
Yeah,
Or if it's like a fun side project in nature that you're just doing for fun, you can go for that route. But you definitely want to lean into making the client happy. Um, yeah, I'm curious. So I know you spend a lot of time on Twitter, and I'm curious your thoughts about sharing your work and being overly creative and trying to juggle that because I'm sure like I get this all the time, just mad imposter syndrome when sharing my work on Twitter. I don't really do it that often. Like we don't really work with a lot of creative on a lot of creative projects. It's mostly
hmm
kind of maybe boring startups. So yeah, I always kind of struggle with that. I'm curious your thoughts on that in general.
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean, man. I just think that it's well, at the end of the day, it's just about like kind of just really just focusing on you, right? Just doing you. I think like for the most part, crafting your own lane is essential for this because you can always just kind of like revert back to like what you like to do and like kind of like what you're trying to carve yourself out to be known for. So as much as it's
Yeah.
easy to give into the noise around you, it's just about just like coming back to that focus of like, okay, this is my mission and this is my purpose and this is what I'm trying to build out. So I think like just always reverting back to that point because man, I understand like there's a lot of dope talent out here and it's easy to get just distracted or always compare yourself or you know what I mean. Stuff like that happens. I realize though that the older I get, the less I really care about that stuff too. Like I'm just like I have nothing to
Totally.
prove. So there's that other piece too is like the accomplishments that you build and that you get like they kind of just start to um, they start to diminish some of the like self judgment that you probably have on yourself just because you're just getting so many like internal so much internal satisfaction that the outside doesn't matter no more. You know what I mean? So like I
Yeah.
think it's also a personal development thing too, which is something that like I think a lot of people overlook in entrepreneurship or just like freelance or just in general. Like when you're working on your own, is like that inner work is just as valuable as the outer. And so like if you're not constantly working on that, like it's easy to get distracted. Um, so yeah, that's just how I like to think about it, man. I try not to get too caught up in things because yeah, that shit would be crazy.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, yeah, speaking of like kind of vanity things, or not vanity things, but like awards and stuff like that, and like, um, accolades. I saw you won Webflow Professional Partner of the Year last year. I'm curious your thoughts on that and like, what do you think contributed to that overall? Because I think that's a fantastic accomplishment, first off, but yeah, just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think for me, it's just a 50-50 thing. I'd say more so 80-20, right? Like, I think it's an 80-20 thing for me because although it's an amazing accomplishment and I'm grateful for it, part of me is like, like I wish it would have like translated to something other than it just being like an award, you know what I mean? Like just like a thing where people leave fire emojis and then that was it, right? Like I
Yeah.
kind of wish that it would have amounted to more and like when I use it in conversation and try to leverage it somewhere that it held a little bit more weight. That's not to take away anything from the Webflow people and like I'm grateful and I'm appreciative of it. But if I'm looking at it from like a just like a just like an unbiased standpoint and like removing emotion out of it, I do think that it just could have been so it just could have been so much more, right? I think so that's just kind of how I feel about it. Like I do love the fact that like we won it. I'm appreciative and it was great. But if it just could have translated to just a little more, I think that would have been awesome. I'm also at the point too where like I care less about doing things that look cool and just more so focus on doing things that are going to create value and
Mm.
like just gain like just create momentum or create some revenue or just create something that's like tangible that like I can either feed the team with or myself. So that's like kind of the position I'm in right now is just like navigating through all these opportunities because like man like there's so many like there's situations that come through my email quite often. They're like, hey Dexter, we want you to be a part of this, and I'm like, that's great, but that's taking time away from like what I can be putting on my like where I could be eating elsewhere and like making money or you know what I mean. And so
Yeah.
and like I've gotten like articles and stuff written about me, and it's cool. It looks great. I think it's great for legacy too. Like when I can like look back and be like, hey, kids, I did this cool shit. Like I'm on the internet. They probably won't really care by the time that they're, but I did it, like, and they might not know what I'm talking about, but they might be, oh wow, that's cool, Dad. I guess, like, I don't know. That legacy piece is cool. But yeah, I just think that, man, too bad some of these things just could have amounted for so much more. And like when you start to think about press and awards.
Yeah, dude, I really appreciate your note about that. You mentioned earlier, like inner work, and I think that it's just being okay with your work and what you're doing rather than like all these awards and accolades and stuff like that.
Right.
I think that's just a better way to go about it. It's really easy to get caught up in that stuff and just compare yourself to others, but just being stoked with what you're doing and like not listening to the noise, I think is the recipe for success. Um, Yeah, and speaking of like inner work, I guess, or maybe passion projects, I'm curious to hear more about Crafted Essentials, which is a sub brand of Crafted, focused on just providing cost-effective websites for small to medium businesses. For those listening, check it out. It's at craftedessentials.co. We'll link to it in the description as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear the story behind this because it seems like a really cool project.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, so the story behind it is really just to give context. Like just being a black entrepreneur, you see a lot of people in my community, and just like you just see a lot of black entrepreneurs that they're just like they're really talented, but they just don't have the opportunity or they don't have the funding or like there's just certain resources that are missing. And so when you start to think about like high quality, high value design, like sometimes there's a disconnect
Mm.
between like that access and the people. So like that's a part of Crafted Essentials, and also just putting my arms around like those pre-seed communities, those small mom and pop local businesses that you might have seen the tweets and like the Instagram post about like the $100 client like just being like this needy begging person that like just doesn't really like to pay you, and or something like that, right? And then you see the $10,000 client where it's like, oh yeah, no problem, it's paid. Like that's not, for one, that's not really
Yeah.
realistic. You know what I mean? I've had $20,000 clients that are like pestering me every night. Um, and then I've had, $5,000 clients that are just like, they're amazing to work with. So there's both of those things can be true, right? So with that being said, it's just like putting my arm around around those people of like, hey, like we actually care, and like we don't see you guys as like a low value client because you're not in like a certain category of like companies. So
Yeah.
with that being said, that's where the initiative comes from. And then yeah, we just work with a lot of cool mom and pop shops or just like small businesses or solo entrepreneurs. Pre-seed companies are in that arena too. Like I've worked with some pre-seed healthcare, like a slew of healthcare companies. They just
Nice.
didn't have they just weren't on their funding round yet. And they just need a good website. So there's that opportunity. I work with like local. Like local like trash pickup somewhere in like Louisiana, like rural Louisiana, where like the elderly don't have access to city like trash pickup.
Mm.
Like they usually have independent companies, and so like it varies, man. But the original initiative is just like just catering towards that lower, I guess, lower end of the market, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, dude. First of all, I love that, and I think it's a great um, project. I love I love that you kind of separated it a little bit, and I'm just curious your thoughts on that in general, because you got Crafted Studios and then Crafted Essentials, which is like a sub brand. Um, yeah, how do you think about agencies spinning up smaller sub brands for different things that they're working on? Because I'm kind of struggling with this myself when I'm thinking through just like new business models. Flowsparrow is known for one thing, and sometimes I feel like it conflicts if I'm trying to do something else. So I'm just
Hmm.
curious your thoughts on separating those two and what the thought process was behind that.
Yeah, I think separating the two was just my take on like um, just splitting up the brand because one, Crafted Studios, I think just speaks to a whole different group of people, a whole different group of companies,
Mm.
and a whole different like slew of different industries that aren't like the essentials. So just making essentials feel more friendly and approachable, and the studio feel more, I guess, corporate. I guess speaking to marketing teams, speaking to different stakeholders, whether it's like I have like a solo
Yeah.
founder who never worked with an agency before ever probably. So I just need to like just gear my copy and color palette and stuff to just make it feel more like, hey, like we're here to help you type of vibe. So like that was the idea, just being able to like split the messaging up. And I just felt like I couldn't integrate the two in Crafted Studios, so I just was like, all right, well, let's just create something totally different, and just kind of see where it goes. And I got some pretty great like feedback from the design community on Twitter too, just from the copy and the design standpoint, which is
Hmm.
cool because like I'm not a copywriter. I feel like we really did nail the copy on that. So yeah, so I just felt like I don't know, everything just made sense when I launched it. I just kept it going. But yeah, that's just how I think about it. Like, just wanted to separate the messaging. If the messaging was the same, but we have different offers, then I would just would create different packages. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, totally.
so yeah, yeah. And what were you thinking about in terms of like? I know you said like you potentially you're thinking about something with flow sparrows. Like, what you got going on?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're kind of known for like being a subscription type business where we're like just focused on that monthly retainer kind of setup. And I kind of want to branch into like maybe more creative projects. We're doing a fair bit, but like you were mentioning, like I think the messaging can be a little different, or maybe I can create like a sub brand that has focused messaging. Maybe it's not named Flow Sparrow. Maybe it's just named something else completely. I'm not sure, but like I like that separation sometimes because I actually feel like people's attention spans in general are just like very low, and having to click through a site to find a your different packages or your different sub like pages or something like that. It might be better set up as a sub brand versus like trying to fold everything into that higher bigger brand.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, yeah. It's a tricky one. I think. It's a tricky one. I mean, it's like it's something that you got to consider too, because you're running two different operations. So I think
Yeah.
what my problem has been between the two is like, where do I put my focus? Although if someone comes to the studio and they don't have the money that they need to start a minimum level of engagement with Crafted Studios, I do offer essentials. So in some weird ways, they work kind of in parallel, but it's not the same as like being able to grow them at the same time because that's really difficult to do. I think essentials is more. it's easy. It's easier for me to market because there's probably like a larger market I can speak to that, you know what I mean, compared to like there's probably a larger market of solo founders trying to get things together compared to like just like certain like niche companies in the tech space or software
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
So like yeah, so like growing these has been a challenge, at least both at the same time because like I can't do everything, right? So that's the hard part. So I think maybe that's another challenge of like building sub brands. It's like just being able to manage the two.
Yeah, I kind of like that they're adjacent though, because like you mentioned, like if they're not a good fit for crafted studios, you just be like, hey, I still have this offer here. Because like, man, I'm sure you know as an agency owner, like I just hate saying no to people, especially if it's like somebody that like I kind of like and I want to do something for in general. And I like their like business and their products and stuff like that. Like I hate saying no to that. And I like the idea of having like a smaller brand that can focus on that. Maybe just have maybe a more templated approach or something that's like a little bit easier. Not like take them through the full process you would for like a big creative project. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's super interesting to me. I when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's such a good idea. That was the first thing I That's the first thing I thought. So yeah, I love it, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say on this is too is like there's an expectation level of both clients from 10,000 to 2,000 that are exactly the same. That's what I noticed. Is like the $2,000 client has high expectations, just like the $10,000 client. So that's like if you're not prepared for something like that, and you're just expecting that you can just like lazily throw something together for like the $2,000 client. Oh man, boy, man, I don't know. You gonna be pissed off because
Yeah, totally.
people just don't operate like that, right? Like, they don't have their expectation seed level based off of how much they spent. How much they spend is really like it could be their last dollar, right? Like there's some situations where like this is all I have to invest in my business is 2,000, and like so this means everything to me right now. And the same thing could be said for like the businesses that allocate $10,000 to a product. That could be like just everything they got for their web budget, right? And like the number can go higher and higher. So it's like depending on like the money part don't really matter. It's just like how much value can you give and like managing those expectations is another thing. Because like I said, man, like they don't care that they only spent 2,000. Like to you it's only 2,000, but to them it's like everything. So it's like they're still expecting the absolute best. So like it's been pretty interesting. Like trying to like because here's the thing that I do in Crafted Essentials too. Like I'll have like a bunch of different like designs that we just created over the years, and I just all in one Figma file. And so like
Hmm.
when an Essentials client comes to the door, it's essentially just like mixing and matching all these different like UI pieces, and sometimes exploring new design if we need to, but essentially just grabbing those components. And then, just like making the dev process easier because we've already have built them too. So we have two different libraries. So the design library and
Nice.
and the dev library. So yeah, it makes it easier, right? Um, so yeah, like with that being said too, like just trying to yeah, like manage expectations just based off of like what's already built, it's a lot more challenging when you're doing it that way compared to like a custom experience.
Yeah, dude, I really like that. You mentioned, having design and dev components ready to go. Yeah, I think a lot of people, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is just, um, I think a lot of people miss out on not doing that and templating certain things and like just finding common things that you use and making a repeatable process out of it. So like that could be said for like onboarding or whatever, like, just creating systems for that stuff, I think can help speed things up and lower costs in general. Yeah, curious your thoughts on that. Like, how do you do a lot of systems and stuff in both these businesses or?
Yeah. Yeah, so like you mean like in terms of like design operations or just like systems like onboarding
Yeah,
and
I
stuff?
think yeah, like not just design and dev, but like, maybe onboarding or like how you bring them through the process and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for Essentials, I'll start there. So for Essentials, I use a software called Bloom. Bloom is really cool, man. It's dope. It's dope because
Oh.
it's like a all-in-one system. I like Bloom because it's just It's like you can do a lot of stuff in there. So like I take them through like a there's different packages on Essentials, and so with each package I have like a what they call in Bloom an instant offer. And so what an instant offer does, it's like basically if you're familiar with like a type form or even like a tally,
Mm,
it takes them through that process of like, hey, like put in your name, your email, and then like stuff like that. So like when that's the good thing about having like productized offerings is that like you can just like basically throw together packages really easily for the and then like to put them through and then just to make the onboarding process quicker. So it puts them through that entire system of like signing contracts, paying it via Stripe, and then yeah, setting up a call with me, like a kickoff call for design. So yeah, that's the flow. Just like they could choose a package, they go through that piece, choose an add-on. The add-on is just like maintenance, for example. Um,
mm-hmm.
and then outside of maintenance, there's like hours. There's like website hours if you need something custom. And typically that could be like a quick logo or something like that, right? Um, so like there's those add-ons, and then if there's nothing there, then you just move on over to like payment, and then yeah, they set up a kickoff, and then yeah, we're good to go. And then on that side of things, once we set up I set up a kickoff call, I just spin up a Slack channel, and we just get going. So like yeah, just try to make
Nice.
that process quick as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's kind of like why we had some early success maybe at Flow Sparrows because like we had like a good onboarding where it was just like, hey, you hit the, you reach out, we do a call quick, but then we send you like, access to our task management dashboard that asks you a bunch of questions and kind of brings you through the flow. And then you check out right in there and it automatically takes the money out of their account every month. Just doing stuff like that can really like speed up the process rather than, doing the typical like, hey, like do a discovery call. Okay, then we do a mood board. Then we do like this, and then like the older
Right.
way of doing things, or a more classic way of doing things, I should say. So yeah, I think that's awesome. Um,
Yeah,
cool.
agreed. Agreed. I have a question for you too, real quick, before you move on. Like, you being someone who has been doing the productized offerings and stuff. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you're doing the classic like systems? And if so, what do you think is better from your like opinion? Because like to me, I always looked at Flow Sparrow as like the quote unquote OGs of like the subscription model, basically, right? Like I looked at y'all like, okay, like yeah, they've been doing this for like a long time. Like like when I first seen what you guys offered, I thought that was really unique because I'd never seen it before up until that point. So like, yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the kind words. I do think yeah, we started it kind of early, and thankfully, like it worked out pretty well at the beginning. But yeah, in relation to the process of like the two, so we started out as a subscription agent. That was the first thing we did. We launched on like Product Hunt, and it was like $700 a month or something, or $900 a month for unlimited whatever you want design and dev, and that didn't work out very well. But like we got some traction and we got some clients, and then we worked our way up and raised our prices and stuff and found a good process and stuff like that, and it was really good. But then we started getting offers for new build projects, so we had to start learning. It was a little bit of a shift because we were very task orientated. Like that's what that subscription model is. Like we have a dashboard. People sign in. They're like, "Hey, fix this. Hey, create this page. Hey, do this." And it's very like, yeah, task orientated. Whereas like we had to almost completely shift gears when doing new build projects because we had to go through the typical wireframing process, plan out the content, work with them. So it was a little bit of a grind at the beginning for sure. But we're kind of slowly getting into a groove with both, and they're both have their own thing going on. I don't think I have a preference on which one. I think they're both unique and awesome in their own way. I think I get more excited about new build projects because there's like creativity involved and I can think through stuff and it's like problem solving. Whereas like the subscription is very, hey, do this. Okay, it's done. Back and forth. Very like linear and not a lot of thought in it, which is nice sometimes kind of, but it can get kind of old. So I
Hmm.
don't think I have a preference between the two, but they're both like, I guess, need their own systems and their own process because, yeah, trying to just do both at the same time can be kind of tricky. So
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully we figured it out lately, but it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I can imagine, especially with like when you start to talk about. I know you guys don't do this no more, but when you start to talk about like unlimited stuff, that stuff looks like a
Yeah.
headache. Yeah, that stuff looks
Well,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, we still kind of do unlimited per se. I think it's more of like a marketing thing than anything. We just don't
Mm,
put caps on like how many tasks you put in, or like hours or anything like that. We just like how we manage it is we have like a standard and a premium plan. The standard is one active task at a time. So like we're only working on one thing at a time. And that's like a good way for us to manage it where we like, okay, like this, we wait for feedback or like we do a task, we send it to them, wait for feedback, action on the feedback, and then finish that and then work on the next thing. And if we do it that way where it's one after the other, I found it's it just helps with the unlimited thing because we're not doing too much. And then with our premium plan, we just have like two active tasks at a time. So it's like we're just working on two active things at a time, and we just manage it that way. And like when we're talking with the client or interfacing with them, we're just like, oh no, we got to finish this one, or do you want us to switch priorities? And we just focus on one thing at a time. Whereas like they could give you 10 tasks, but we're just like, okay, which is the top priority? We'll
yeah,
focus on that one, and then we get it done, and then we work on the next one. So like, we've had some clients that were like, hey, this isn't fast enough. We're like, okay, peace out. This like not working. So like, you know what I mean? Like it's a good way to manage it, and I found it relieves that stress, and people like the unlimited label on it, even if it's not technically, hey, we'll just sit and work for you forever.
mhm,
But they like that in general. They don't like, being hit with hours like, halfway through the month if they got a busy month. Saying like, hey, like you got 10 hours this month. Like we can't do any more. I think it's a
mhm.
friction point. And I like being able to just be like, yeah, yeah, we'll do it. Some months are crazy. Some months are like really chill. And I found it kind of evens itself out. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
I've always pictured like unlimited to be like, you got one like, well, depending on how the team, but I always pictured it being like, you got one guy working on 10 things and he's like up until, like fucking midnight or something. Like,
Yeah,
just going.
yeah.
But when you throw that active task in, it actually makes a lot of sense because like I can imagine if that boundary wasn't there, it'd just throw whatever at you. You know what I mean? So
I
that's
think
good.
I think it's really about setting boundaries, especially with that type of model. Like, just
Yeah.
put a box for them to play in, like the client, like, hey, you can work within this box, and that's it. Like, we don't work evenings, we don't work weekends. Like, sometimes we do, anyways, but we don't like say, hey, we're gonna do finish this on Saturday for your launch on Monday. We're just like, no, we'll work on it on Monday. And you'll launch it whenever we're done. You know what I mean? And we just kind of like have a conversation about it that way. But yeah,
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. I'm glad to hear
nice.
that. Yeah, I was always just picturing, yeah, you going just crazy up until like, 2 o'clock or something. So that's good.
I mean, I definitely did at the beginning. It was a little stressful, but we got a good team now, so it's awesome.
Love
Um,
it.
but yeah, I wanted to ask about your coaching sessions because I noticed, like you mentioned on Twitter, that um, you're doing coaching sessions. I noticed it on your site as well. I'm just curious, like the story behind that and your thought process, and like what you typically are helping people with through that.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, appreciate it. So like so yeah, the coaching is cool. It's been a unique mix right now. So typically though, what the coaching program is built for is helping freelancers build out their own studios. So just going from that individual, duplicating yourself, right, in terms of like what you can do, and then just like documenting that entire process of what you know, and then just handing it off to
Mm,
someone else, and then building out a team, right? So like that's the idea behind it is like just being able to help them like lead and build out their own studios, and it's been a unique mix because it's not only that, but it's also like I've also been in situations where I help freelancers just grow their business just in general. So like if there's any direction they need in like proposal writing or marketing, just getting the confidence to put themselves out there, or just seeing the value in their work, then there's that too, and like being able to like articulate what they do in their design, so that way they can actually start to like price more. So yeah, there's that piece too, and then I have a slew of resources for them that they can pull from, a bunch of different worksheets that I'm working on. There's one worksheet right now, but I'm working on a ton, so that way they can just like just really start to explore what their work really means to them and also potentially the market. So yeah, just trying to connect the pieces for them, just business wise, right? Because some of them are really talented creatives, but they just need like, like someone that's like savvy enough to help them navigate through negotiation situations, or like, hey, how do I launch this the proper way, right? Stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing. Essentially, though, the entire program is a 6 week program, and it's called Studio Launch. And it's a 6 week program where like each week we focus on like different. There's a different area of focus throughout like the process of building out your own studio. It's been really cool so far, man. It's been dope.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. For those interested, I'll definitely link to that in the description. Um, yeah, dude, dude, it seems like you're doing a lot, which is crazy. I'm curious how you manage all that because, from what I gather, you also have a day job as a UX designer. Um, so yeah, I'd love to hear the story about that first, and then maybe speak to how you juggle all this, all this stuff because it sounds
I
crazy.
don't. I don't,
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
I fucking don't. I really fucking don't, man. My entire life is just design. I wake up
Yeah.
and it's just design. I go to sleep and it's design right now, and I'm cool with it. That's what I wanted. I wanted as many opportunities thrown at me as possible, just to get a feeling of like, okay, if I'm gonna ground myself in the work world, then what does that look like for me? Am I working at a startup? Am I working at like a large company like I am right now? A large corporate company that's been around for a while. Like, what is it, right? Like, or is it like an agency, like like with like a management role this time around? So just trying to get a feeling from it. I just like threw myself into a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, like to answer your question, I don't manage it, but what I do at the moment though is I divert my focus on studio work, and what I do in the studio right now is I manage the sales process and
Mm,
the just like the client experience, and then the team will help do the rest, which is really helpful because I can't imagine doing design work right now on top of everything else. So like there's
totally.
that piece, and also I'm working on bringing in another designer, which I've already. That announcement should be soon, but just like in general, like yeah, just trying to just strengthen like just things that already exist around me, and people, like just to make sure that like we're all in alignment here, so that way like client work isn't falling off just because I'm not around. So that's the studio side of things, and yeah, coaching, I just work around my schedule at work. So like I mean,
Mm,
like, hey guys, this is like the time I'm free. Like, yeah, this book a call these days, and let's just like So I manage kind of well. Thankfully, right now I slowed down with the studio just to focus on like one or two projects a month, but just like really high value projects. So that way, like I don't have to
mm,
do like a ton of stuff. So yeah, just trying
yeah.
to find balance in the things, but it hasn't been too challenging. There has been some nights though where I had to put in some OT and be up till late, but yeah, it's a part of the process. It is what it is.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I'm curious to hear like about the thought process about getting that job at a larger company, because like on one hand you have like a thriving studio. I'm sure there's some goals that you have in relation to getting that job. I'm just like, yeah, curious because it seems like an interesting switch.
Yeah, it definitely is. Coming from, a place where you have a complete agency over everything, right? Like what you want to do, how
Yeah.
you want things to look, and then go into a company where things are really slowed down, and you got to go through like a bunch of like there's just bureaucracy at these companies, right? So there's a bunch of different
Hmm.
pieces and people you got to like maneuver and navigate. And it's interesting because initially I wanted the job just because I wanted to experience a little bit of stability, even though like right now with the job market, like what is stability? But
Yeah.
like you can find maybe a couple months, that's a blessing, right? Of just like slowing the pace down a little bit. So yeah, initially I just was like, all right, like let's just see how this goes. For one, like it's like self-validation too, because as someone who didn't graduate from high school, man, like I always have this relentless energy to just achieve stuff that I didn't think I'd be able to achieve when I was younger. So like
Mm.
building my own studio was one, like actually like a successful business just in general was one. So building out crafted studios fulfilled that itch. But then like also I was like, well, like there's like this gap of like, okay, what if I didn't do my own thing and I was like, I don't know, for example, maybe going to school, or like I just wanted to like work a regular job and I didn't really do any of this entrepreneurial shit, right? Like what did that look like? Hence the need to go out and get a job. It was like, let's just see if I can accomplish that too. And like what does that look like for me? So being in a design lead position is really cool because it's just like self-validation of like, man, yo, like you really can do whatever you put your mind to. It's just a matter of time, not a matter of like, like if. So, yeah, it just kind of closed those chapters in my mind. And just racking up the self accomplishments, man. I'm the type of person that just like likes to set goals and just like knock them down, man. Like I have to find
Yeah, I love
something to
that.
do. Yeah, I have to find something to do, and I live in California. I gotta pay for it. I'm looking out at the water right now as I speak. I gotta pay for that. I like wild caught salmon. That's expensive. I gotta pay for that, right? So it's like, like,
Yeah,
hey
word.
man, shit. There's certain things you gotta, that you want to indulge and you gotta do, man. So it's a mixture of everything.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like I always sometimes think like, man, if I wanted to go get a job or like do something a little different outside of building an agency, I wouldn't have a role that I could point to that said, "Hey, I've worked in a big organization before, or I've done this type of work." Like all I can say is like, yeah, I freelanced and then I started an agency. It's an accomplishment, but sometimes like, I've always kind of been interested in like, hey, I wonder how these like big companies work. Like, I wonder if it would be less stressful. I wonder what it would be like what's the pros and the cons. So yeah, I'm curious. Like, what do you like about one like the bigger UX job versus like what do you like about the like agency work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think in terms of just it's a stark contrast between the two because, like I mentioned earlier, you got free agency in your studio to really do whatever the hell you want. If you want to just work
Yeah,
on like putting out cool hoodies and like if you want to make Flow Sparrow merch, you don't got to go through 20 people to say, yeah, let's make some Flow Sparrow merch. You know what I mean? You can just
yeah,
design it tonight and push it out tomorrow. So like that's like the interesting thing is like a lot of some of these companies, they just operate slow. So like, in the position I'm in, the one thing that I don't like is the bureaucracy to it and the politics. You gotta like kind of like play fair ball in a way where it's like you kind of have to navigate the way people feel and like how things historically have been in order to still like get to a new result. So it's kind of weird in that way. I'll be honest. I really like. I'm still like kind of. It's my third day here. No, not really, but it's like what my third week here. So I'm still trying to like, get my footing.
yeah,
Yeah. So like there's that piece too. But I definitely have noticed like yeah, just the way that they push out updates and stuff like that. It's just like a lot slower. And then in contrast to the studio, you can do things just like a lot quicker. I think like also too in like a larger company, you might find yourself depending on how they think about design, you might need to like push them to be more design centric, and that can like include a slew of other problems and things that you need to do. So like in my case, I might like I'm pushing for like design systems and design operations, building out a design team of my own, like situations
right.
like that, right? So yeah, it's unique. It's interesting being in this position now because I can see why people hire Webflow devs. I can see why people
Yeah,
reach out to like Webflow experts and stuff. I can see why people reach out to agencies in general, just because it's a challenge to just get tickets through. Put in a ticket for like a certain thing you want done, like a task or a problem that you might have, and like getting approved for you to work on it, and then working on it is like a whole nother month or two. So, they might want to work with an agency because they could just turn things around quickly. And they can just, they're just on, we're just on top of the tech, right? Like what tech can do. That's another thing, man. I've learned a lot about our value as like Webflow people working at this job. Because like
yeah,
we're really valuable, man. I don't think people really like, I think we know it, but I don't really think we know it in like, in relation to like what a large company wants because we're on the other side of it so often that we don't see the inner workings. But seeing the inner workings, I could, like there's a lot that they just aren't familiar with just because they're used to operating a certain way. And yeah, like so I think with all the tech that we know, as quick as we move, stuff like that is really valuable, man. Like I think people are starting to notice it. Like we're early is basically what I'm saying. We're still early.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just a good note for those listening to charge your worth as well, because,
Mm,
and yeah, like I've experienced that firsthand where, they come to us because they're just extremely slow internally, and they're just, especially marketing teams, when they want to like get some stuff out. We worked with one client that was just like trying to spin up landing pages for paid advertising like really regularly, and they were just struggling internally, and we just like solved that for them, and it was a great experience for both parties. And yeah, thankfully we were able to charge a fair bit for that, which is nice.
nice.
And yeah, just I think it's a good note. Great for marketing materials just in general, is like understanding how slow these big organizations can be, and then offering that faster solution. I think is a amazing.
One
Um,
thousand percent. One, I
yeah.
agree. I agree. And I also, what's interesting too is like just, I think I've already had these conversations though with like previous clients and stuff. But it's interesting to see how they like what they actually some of these companies are just an open checkbook, right? In terms of design.
Mm,
So like sometimes they just don't know, but they just know they need it done, and they just pay whoever like gets referred to them or they trust just to get it done. And that doesn't
yeah.
always mean that it's going to create the best result. What I've noticed is a lot of these agencies that are like they kind of do things the old-fashioned way, like you had mentioned earlier, the mood board,
Hmm.
the whole thing. Like they're charging still like 120K for a website design. You know what I mean? And
It's crazy.
what I found interesting is that like with this birth of new like productized studios is why the hell are we doing this? Like why are we charging so little for so much value? Like that's something
Yeah.
I've been thinking about a lot. I haven't really wrapped my head around it too much, but just looking at some of the designs that like were created by like larger agencies that are just like they're not really as effective. Like that's the reason why they're reaching back out or they're hiring somebody like me, right? Like why? Like why? And like what's up with
Yeah.
that? I've been trying to explore and figure that part out, and I've also been trying to figure out, yeah, like why are we charging ourselves so little? Like, do you have like have you been thinking about that any, or like just like
Oh.
exploring like charging
Oh
more
man.
or
Oh man, all the time. Like, dude,
uh,
this crosses my mind a lot because like, what I think is a large amount of money is drastically different from what these people think is a large amount of money. And that shift just in itself like took me a long time to understand. Um, Especially like when building Flowspur up and like starting to raise our prices, I was like, oh man, like 5K a month, dude, that's a lot of money. That's like a lot of money. I don't know if people are going to go for it. And then we just get clients that just like pay that just to retain our services and not even ask us to do anything sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they just,
mhm.
they're working on such a bigger scale. So like it's all relative. Like when you're thinking about pricing yourself, it's like you can, charge what you're worth. You can increase those prices, and there'll be people out there that'll pay it. If you can provide a good offer and a good service that's useful, especially just being fast in a slow environment, kind of like we were talking about. So yeah, it's definitely top of mind all the time.
Yeah, 100%. I agree too. I agree with the yeah, just like, I guess the one thing that really matters, right, is like despite subscription services and despite all this other stuff, right? Like at the end of the day, like what will always remain is just providing value and like excellent service, right? Just making our clients happy. So I think like there's still as popular as subscriptions or like productized models may seem, that doesn't mean that it's the end of the other side of things, right? Where you got like
Mm-hmm.
that long drawn out like kind of like client experience, and because some people might need like a little more hand holding in certain situations, or they might want to be more
Totally.
involved or whatever. So I think like there's opportunity still for both. At least yeah, that's just what I see working in this company too. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's up to the client and what they need at that particular time. But I do want to add just to this point in general. I think there's still such a wide open market for this stuff, especially in Webflow dev, just in general. Like you were saying, like I think we're super early, and you might see all these like subscription models popping up and all this like agencies popping up, and the experts program is getting like a lot of crazy, a lot more people in there. But just in general, I still think there's just a huge market cap for websites in general. Like I think Webflow's like, I don't know, like under 10% of the entire, I think it's maybe under 5% of the entire like online websites, and like WordPress is still huge. So like we all know how much better Webflow is than WordPress. So there's still a huge market cap available, and
Yeah.
I would just like to stress that to everybody listening. Like, don't get discouraged. There's a lot of room to charge what you're worth, and just get more work.
1000%, man. New businesses are being built every day, man. Despite the crazy economy, you still see them, being built every day. So, yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Dope, man. Well, yeah, like thank you so much for hopping on, dude. I think that's a good place to put a bow on it. I'm curious if you have any like CTA for the people listening, places that people can reach out to you at. Anything new on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, what's new on the horizon is, yeah, well, for one, relaunching Designer's Desk newsletter. It's been on a pretty good
Nice.
hiatus. Needed to experience some things, and yeah, just needed to experience some things. And also, I just wanted to batch produce some content so that way I'm not like always like writing and writing and writing and figuring out
Oh
what to
yeah.
write in the midst of so many things going on. So with that being said, it's going to be up in mid-August. I think I have everything kind of scheduled for August 15th, so it's coming back, and that's going to be
Nice.
good. So yeah, going to continue. So Designer Desk is focused on yeah, building out studios, giving my perspective from yeah, from the work I do, and just sharing as much knowledge as I possibly can. So that's what that is going to entail, and that should be up soon. You can find that on Substack, and then yeah, just you can just like reach out to me or just like look at dexterwjr.com if you're interested in coaching. I've coached five. I don't want to call them students. This is called clients so far. It's been amazing. A ton of good feedback, ton of growth, a lot of powerful conversations going on. So yeah, get involved if you're looking at building your own studio out as well. Yeah, we'd love to work with you. So, and also appreciate the space to plug some stuff. So thanks,
Of
Keith.
course, man. Yeah, dude. I'll make sure to link all that stuff in the description. And yeah, dude. Again, thank you so much for hopping on, man. It was so good to hear your experience and just jam with you about agency stuff. I think it was a great conversation. Hope folks got some value out of it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Keith. Yeah, 100%, man. Thank you for having me on. It was a great conversation, and yeah, like you said, I hope the folks get value out of it. Yeah, once again, thank you.
Of course, man. Peace.
All right, peace, man.